In this video, we're going to take a look at section views of the drawing, and a section view is a little bit like the remove section that we did on that ratchet, but it gives us control of where the cutting plane line is. And so, starting on page 420 and going to 422, we're going to take a look. And in case that you forget from your blueprint reading class. All right, I want to blow that up a little bit. If we look at this first one, we have a vertical cutting plane line. And one thing to remember with sectional views is that this cutting line, the arrows are always going to be labeled. And here we have PP, and that's going to correspond with that section view also labeled P-P. And so if we have multiple section views on a drawing, we know which view we're looking at. The other thing to remember with a section view is the arrows always tell us in which direction we're looking. And so with this part, it's as if we cut this part along that line, and then we flip that part up 90 degrees, and this is exactly what we're looking at in this direction. And so you can see these crosshatches here. We're looking at, that's the solid metal of the part, and now we're looking at this notch and these two holes. So here we've got a horizontal section line. And, like the name says, that now the cutting plane line goes horizontal. Otherwise, the concept is the same. And what this does is it gives us an internal view of the part that we typically can't see from standard top, front, or right side view. It just provides additional detail. Here we have an auxiliary view. And so we're taking this part and we're setting the cutting plane line diagonally through this part, and now we're looking at that section. Again, when you think of a section view, you're always thinking we're cutting a section out of the part in order for us to look at the internals of that part. And that's when a very typical term is cross section, and that's what it means. The cross section of the part is as if you cut it, and now you're looking at that cut, the cutting plane. Here's an aligned view, and it's almost as if we're taking, it's not exactly a pie shape, but we're cutting this vertically, and then we're coming down here at an angle. And again, look at the arrows. This is what we're looking at. And why we would use this versus just a vertical cutting plane line is now this cutting plane line, this diagonal one, goes through this screw hole instead of this one. And so it gives us a look at this hole right here versus just a vertical cutting plane. Here's an arc offset. A little bit more complex, but what this does is it goes through certain features that we want to see the internals of. And so it starts here, it comes down through this notch, and now it goes along this radius, comes through this screw hole, and then down through this screw hole vertically and out. And so again, you always have to look at the section line or the cutting plane line, same thing, and that is going to give you your view of that cross section. So you have to look at the two together to understand what you're looking at. Now here's an offset line. Now this is different than a horizontal because we're combining horizontal and vertical lines. We're coming through here, and the person drafting this decided that we also need to see, not only do we need to see the cross section of the part through these features, but we need to come up here and see these features as well. And so if we were to look at just this cross section by itself without this bigger reference, we might think this is a straight cut across. Well, it's not. We're looking at different features, and that's why we need to look at these two in combination. And then here we have a notch offset that, again, follow the line. This is what we're looking at. So if we look in the book on page 422, it wants us to create a section view of this detail. And so let's move this down. The book is showing that it wants a section on top, and we can move this again later. And so let's close this, and then we're going to come up here. We're going to click on section view, and we are going to select horizontal and auto start. We're going to come down here and you can see this auto start. It kind of helps us pick something. And so if I pick this circle, it's going to go right in the center. And so let's pick that circle. And now that gives me that section view, and I can either drag it above or below because we want to line that section up with the detail that we're taking the section from, so we can compare the cutting plane line to that section that we just took so we can understand what that detail is. And again, we can move things around later. And so now it's labeled section C, scale 1 to 1, and here's my cutting plane line. It's labeled C. And so it's as if I cut this ratchet head in half, I turn it 90 degrees, and now I'm looking exactly where I cut it. And so I can see the holes through in this pocket here. And I can see the cross section here of the actual where it goes into the handle. Let's clean this up a little bit. One, I'm going to change this to section A or AA, being it's our first section. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to double click on this. And I'm going to delete this scale. I don't really need this. And I'm going to do the same here. And again, this just shows, we have, we have some control here, and I can move these up a little tighter. And it makes the print, in my opinion, a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to look at. And we're not losing any information over that. We're going to add an isometric view up here. So let's take this for now. Let's move this down. We're going to move this down as well. And we can move this around later for our finished view. And we'll say OK. And then we're going to come up here for model view. All right, so if nothing shows up here, we may have to do one of two things. I can click this button here, come back to the drawing, I click ratchet body. And even though it says you have selected a drawing document and only parts and assemblies can be inserted, we're going to hit OK. And now if I come back to this, it may or may not show. So it doesn't. So the other way I can do this is I can browse, and then I can find that ratchet body that we use for this. I can put that in there, and now my information is in there. You may have to do that. And that's that ratchet body that we made before. Okay, so now we're going to put an isometric view in here, and we can click on this. And we should just be able to drag it over. And we're going to change the look on this. We want shaded with edges. And actually that is the forged, so we want to make sure that we use the wrong or the correct one. And so I select machined long, and you can see that it changed that. And then we want to change this custom scale to use 1/4. Makes that a little bit bigger up there. So once you have this placed up in that right-hand corner, we're going to hit OK. And then we're going to end this video here, and we're going to pick up with annotations.